Looks like we're setting up for a quiet end to a quiet hurricane season. Will dry conditions continue across most of the southeast? Will Florida stay wet? These answers and more in the October 9 edition of the Water Resources Outlook. And now here's the 30-day departure from normal for the southeast. And over much of the southeast, we're seeing below normal precipitation. Those are indicated by the oranges and the yellows. And this is departure from normal. And as you can see, like I said, over most of the southeast we're seeing below normal. The exceptions are Florida, as mentioned in the introduction, and we have had some flooding in Florida over the last month. That's finally starting to recede, and we're starting to get a little bit more dry conditions in Florida, which is good news for them, so they don't see any more flooding. The other areas that have seen a little bit above normal are in South Carolina and Georgia, but those are pretty much few and far between. Most of the area has seen below normal precipitation during this time. How has that impacted the stream flows? Well, this is the time of year when we would expect the lowest stream flows of the year. It's the new water year. Typically during the fall, unless we see tropical weather, the flows in these rivers are pretty low for the normal, so most of these are showing normal, although we are seeing a few below normal areas along in central Alabama, parts of central Georgia, and but those are the two areas where we're seeing below normal. Most of the rest of the area is seeing pretty close to normal, with Florida being above normal and a little bit of North Carolina being above normal for this time of year. How does that look with the Southeast Drought Monitor? We've had some areas of severe drought, and those haven't moved a whole lot. Down in southwest Georgia, we're seeing much below normal the severe drought in that area, and that's very closely related to where we've had below normal precipitation. Much of Alabama is either abnormally dry or moving in close to the severe, moderate, or severe drought. Otherwise, the rest of the southeast is either just a little bit dry or very near normal for this time of year. So where are we with respect to our climatology in the southeast? Well, this is kind of our second flooding season, and the second flooding season usually occurs during the hurricane season, and the peak of the hurricane season. We're coming near to the end of that now, and really because we haven't seen any tropical weather, we're probably not going to see much in the way of flooding because of tropical weather. And so we do, as we get into the end of November and the beginning of December, right in that time frame, we really do start to slow down. We don't get as many floods traditionally during that time, so we're really getting into kind of a quiet time of year, and because we've had a quiet hurricane season, that looks to continue. As for our meteorology, this is the short-term outlook. This is for Monday, October 13th, early next week. And as you can see, there's a frontal system just to the west of our area. We've had high pressure kind of sitting over the top of us for the most part, with most of the rain going into Tennessee and Arkansas and Kentucky kind of skirting our area. But we're finally going to have a front that comes through the southeast, and here's the look at Tuesday with a frontal system moving through and chances for rain increasing at that time for the beginning to the middle of that week. But by Thursday of that week, high pressure will begin to dominate again, and dry conditions will take over. So let's look at the rainfall for the next week. And as you can see, most of the rainfall again falls in that Tennessee River Valley down through Arkansas, the heaviest rain, with a strong gradient between that heavy rain and the lighter rain as we get down into southern Mississippi, South Alabama, South Georgia, and even the coastal areas of the Carolinas. So we'll have to watch that real close to see if that dips a little further south. We're a little ways out, but we're not expecting any flooding from that, but mostly beneficial rains from that. Again, we'll have to watch it pretty closely. Again, after that, looks like things will dry out some after that first week and after that high pressure kind of becomes dominant. So from October 16th through October 22nd, a chance for normal rain near the end of that period. That high pressure may break down at the end of that period, and we could see some rainfall. But right now, it looks like we're more of a dry type period for that second week of the forecast. So looking a little bit further out, here is a look at the dynamical and statistical models. A lot of the models predicting ENSO conditions in La Nina and El Nino, and this hasn't changed from the last month. We're still looking at an El Nino for the winter months, but really it does look like a weak El Nino based on a composite of all these forecasts. Let's take a closer look at one of the forecasts that's in here, and this is the model out of the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. And right now, based on what it's showing us staying in neutral conditions through the rest of this winter and maybe creeping into El Nino conditions as we get into next summer. So again, this is just a closer look at one of the models that's shown in there, and right now it's not showing us getting into El Nino conditions during the winter months. So what does that mean for our precipitation outlook? Well, for October, November, and December, looks like we'll be wetter than normal down in South Florida. Again, this is based on an El Nino forecast, where on typical years when we have El Ninos, we tend to be wetter down in Florida area, and then a gradient as we move up into the northern parts of our area and western parts of our area in the Carolinas. And so that's looking in the beginning of our winter season. And then as we look at the end of the winter season, this is a very typical outlook, where we would see wetter conditions in Florida and on the southern tier of our area, and then a gradient between above normal to the below normal as we get into northern Alabama, Tennessee, and those areas. So that does look like it's likely for that time, and that, again, that's based on our El Nino predictions for this winter. So the bottom line, in the short term, a quiet peak hurricane season means drier than normal for most of the southeast, and it looks like it's going to continue for the rest of hurricane season. As for Florida, the wet season has come to an end for the most part, more like a dry season coming in the next few weeks. That's what we're looking at. It looks more like a dry season for that area. As for the long term, well, as we mentioned, hurricane season is coming to a close with no real significant impacts. There is still that chance, so we have to keep watching, but it doesn't look like that's probably going to happen. And again, the weak El Nino expected going into the winter. Our next water resources outlook will be recorded on October 22nd.